Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the technique cross-up destruction and some of the ways that we can relate it to other techniques in the American Kenpo system. Now keep in mind that this is not designed to be a full comprehensive list or family groupings for that matter, but rather different avenues that you can take to explore and start understanding the American Kenpo system a little bit better. So let's start out with a simple one, change-up point, also known sometimes as position recognition. In this case, from the attack, which in this case happens to be an applied major from the rear, a two-handed choke. So this is going to be our first change-up point. We have options. We can either use depth and step forward or backwards, or do what we do in this technique where we're using width and stepping to the side. So let's start out with cross-up destruction by stepping to the side. But the interesting thing to notice is that this has now created a new change-up point. So from here, we yet again have options. In this case, for cross-up destruction, we're going to step back with the right. But I could have done the opposite and stepped forward with my right. And this would have given me something like falling cross. But if we go back to the original attack, and instead of using width, we use depth, this would give us something like circling wing. Or we can even do an opposite of that and go backwards and do something like twirling wings. So now that we related it to the change-up point, let's look at it from a completely different avenue. In this case, degrees of locking, particularly to the elbow. So the interesting thing to notice is we're going to start out by indirectly affecting the elbow. So what do I mean by that? That we're not actually going to touch the elbow at all. So if we take a look at cross-up destruction, how are we doing this? We're doing it by creating a thumb lock. So by creating a thumb lock, we are causing pain, which is forcing them to lock up their own elbow. So we're not even touching it. But the interesting thing to notice is that we're doing it to two hands from the rear. So let's do an opposite of that and do it from the front to a single hand. In this case, something like gripping talon. The interesting thing to keep in mind is that even though we're doing the same exact thing, slightly different, we're now affecting the fingers and the wrist rather than the thumb. But again, because of the pain, they are locking up their own elbow. So can we do that a little bit different? Well, yes, we can do it where we affect the elbow. In this case, something like clutching feathers, again, using that pain, but we're also using the push-pull to force their elbow to lock out. But again, the interesting thing is that all of these are not directly affecting the elbow. So let's move on to some where we actually directly affect the elbow. And this would give us something like lone kimono, where they're grabbing us and we're now attacking the elbow with our forearm. But just like we did earlier where we had two and then we went to the single, let's go to a double. And this would give us something like twin kimono rather than lone kimono. But if you notice, we don't only have to use our arms to lock up their arms. If we go back to cross-up destruction, we can yet again do the same concept, but utilizing their arms rather than our arms. So even though our hands are the ones moving, we're using their arm to create the lock. So is that the only way we can do that? Well, no. If we continue to decrease and we go lower or using without the extremities, we can now use the body. This will give us something like gift and return, where we can start using their body to lock up their arm. But just like we can use their body, we could also use our body. So for instance, if we look at something like crossing talon, which I'm going to do on the opposite side so you can see it better, we can do something, and again, we're using our arm here, the opposite of what we did in lone kimono. So instead of going up, we're going down, but then we're using the concept of third arming or third handing, where I'm using my body to continue that lock on the arm so that we can deliver all our strikes. So now that we moved it from the top extremities to our body, let's start adding some of the lower extremities. And this could give us something like falling falcon, where we take them to the ground, and then again, we can use our hand to lock up the elbow, we could use our knee to lock up the elbow, or we can use our leg to lock up the elbow. So the way in which we just related cross-up destruction to other techniques in the American Kenpo system was through the degrees of locking, specifically towards the elbow joint, and through change-up point or position recognition. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.